I think a lot of people don't realize when you go to cloud, when you're using SaaS-based application or, whatever it is, whether you're using it as a platform, et cetera. But the moment you go to cloud, there's a whole dimension of other risks, including, and I think one of the biggest, and I think most people may not be familiar, is that even if you're not using certain capabilities, those capabilities can and will impact your environment if there's a problem. Right. Because these capabilities typically don't run in your instance. Yes, your instance, when you did your security vetting, they were, you had a dedicated environment for your organization, and there's the, authentication, authorization controls, there's encryption, there's all these things. And you may say, well, I don't choose to use feature A or feature B. But those features running on the backplane, not only you don't have any visibility into them, but they affect you anyways.
Welcome to the Risk Never Sleeps podcast, in which we learn about the people that are on the front lines delivering and protecting patient care. I'm Ed Gaudet, the host of our program, and today I am pleased to be joined by Connie Barrera, the Chief Information Security Officer at Jackson Health System. Connie, welcome.
Thank you, Ed. It's truly an honor and a pleasure to join you today on your podcast. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And it's so great to have you on the show today. So tell us, let's start off with, tell us about your current role in your organization and a little bit about your background.
Of course. So I want to say it's a beautiful day down here in sunny South Florida.
Nice.
Really great weather today, but just some really quick housekeeping. Mm-hmm. The views I express here are purely my own and don't represent the views of my employer in any way. With that being said, I've had the great fortune to serve as a CISO for the past 10 years at Jackson Health Systems. We are a health system of 8 hospitals. We have countless specialty clinics, urgent care centers. We also train EMS and Army surgical units. We have level 1 trauma, perform every type of organ transplant, and we are very much a teaching institution. And so we're highly integrated with the University of Miami, which actually poses a lot of good challenges and unique challenges to our day-to-day, but it's very much a strong partnership.
So I guess Risk never sleeps and Connie never sleeps, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And I've actually been on both sides. I was at UM for quite a number of years. So it's actually a good thing to know both environments. And yes, not a lot of sleep these days.
All right, cool. So how did you get into healthcare and cybersecurity?
That I think is very interesting. And actually, I was at an event last week where they were talking about how so many people that had been in music wound their way to IT and especially IT security, which spoke to me tremendously. When I was in college, I had a triple major and spent a lot of time in undergrad. Mm-hmm. And I was doing music, education, and poli-sci. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer.
Me too, by the way. I go back, I look at my high school yearbook and it says pre-law on it, and I laugh. I'm like, yeah, that didn't work out.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I think part of that is that I'm very much a lifelong learner. Mm-hmm. If there's something that excites me, is learning and doing a lot of different things, which perhaps put me in that conundrum of doing too many things at once, and especially from an undergraduate goals perspective. But during my time in undergraduate, I found my way, although doing so many things, having a lot of downtime between courses. So I, convinced my mother, who didn't want me to take on any type of job. She always said I had plenty of time to work. But I found myself onboarding in a department called University Computer Services. And I think that was a cornerstone of where it all happened to me for me, because it was a hobby. I enjoyed it. I excelled. I learned to do everything. It was all hands-on, replacing computers and installing modems and sound cards at a time when things were not plug and play, and you actually had to know a few things.
What you were doing.
Exactly. And so that's really where it all began. I did graduate eventually. and become a teacher. But during the summers, I would go back to FIU and work. And I tell you, as much as I love teaching, and still to this day, it's something I certainly want to revisit in the IT space. I found perhaps a lack of challenge day to day. And so I took the big leap and eventually went to work at Miami-Dade College for a time to into IT. I didn't have a degree or anything, but I had started taking some Microsoft MCP and MCSE tracks, certifications to show proficiency. And I think it was a great time because it was really when a lot of organizations, at least in healthcare and higher ed, were moving from Novell and GroupWise, which I actually find to be a great product, much better than Microsoft. And, you know, the Novell portal was actually pretty incredible. But anyways, many organizations were moving away from that to Active Directory and Microsoft Exchange. And so the hands-on, again, learning that I did, and such a incredibly giving team sharing. I worked with 7 men at Miami-Dade College, and they were incredible. They were completely open and mentoring, allowed me to take a job at Baptist Health Systems to build their first AD in Exchange. And so it's funny because, you know, in that time I had done a lot of endpoint, which, you know, now we call the desktop team. And I think one of the things that really prepared me to join IT security is the fact that in those days, when you were doing endpoint, or you did everything. When I moved on to Miami-Dade College and then Baptist Health Systems, you did everything. There wasn't a team to set up the operating system and a team to do the backups, but you had to do it all. And at Baptist, I had 52 servers that were mine, soup to nuts. And, you know, at some point, while deployment was super fun, architecting something is something that really excites me and motivates me. The monthly patching is not so much. and so, you know, I also wanted to start a family and, you know, talk to my boss at the time. And they said, you know, we're creating a new position in IT security and we think you'd be perfect. And quite honestly, at first, I was a little bit taken back. I thought, I love what I do. But honestly, it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. It was very organic, you know, the way this entire flow happened for me. And one of the main reasons, again, that I love being in IT security is because you're constantly learning, you're constantly challenged. And I think challenges bring growth. And I think that as humans, that growth is what keeps us alive and motivated. And at least for me.
Yeah, no, it's great. And someone that's like you said, a lifetime learner, autodidact, right, is always looking for those opportunities and challenges to learn something new. And I'm sure at the time, cybersecurity probably wasn't the marquee role it is today.
No, exactly. And I think from a reaction, what most people think about, and no doubt it's very much deserved in some situations, not in all. But when you talk about IT security, they think the people that obstruct, the people that are in your way, the people that say no.
The office
and
of no, right.
Exactly. So I've always tried to be everything that is the opposite of that. But to your point, it's not something that people, you know, were gravitating to, at least not willingly.
Yeah. Well, I think after the last couple of weeks with the Change Health breach, I think people are changing their tune about cyber and how it is an enabler for business, because without it, obviously, there's a lot of businesses right now that have been stalled.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, what you mentioned is so mammoth. And for us in healthcare, I think it's been a wake-up call where even organizations that have been able to, you know, stay ahead of the curve or be able to you know, mitigate and not be in a situation of breach. The reality is that while you may have every redundancy, while you may have redundant power supplies and redundant network, ISP providers, and any number of mitigating circumstances, when people were talking about supply chain risks, I don't think they were ever thinking like a Change Health situation.
Right.
This is a situation that, quite frankly, has impacted small and large across the board. And, from tiny physician practices that whatever biller they use, at the end of the day, they use this clearinghouse,
Right.
whatever prescriptions are being
Yeah.
filled. And this is projected, at least what's recorded at many sites, 6 terabytes of data.
Yeah.
And we don't even know really the full scope yet. It's still in play, and it's, March. We're almost at the end of March.
Yeah.
So, it's only time will tell how
Over a month.
significant. Exactly.
Yeah, over a month of pain, and it's incredible to watch, and also to talk to customers that were completely surprised at the depth that change was within their organization. So this need for not just the third-party risk programs that obviously organizations are currently in the middle of implementing, but we also need this holistic view of, it's equivalent to the SBOM. We talked about the SBOM, the software bill of materials, right? But we also need this vendor bill of materials. We need to understand the impact and the reach of vendors across our organization.
Exactly. And one of the things that it still continues to be a challenge to this day is that, and I try to tell every team that I've ever worked with, this is not just for me in IT security. This is a benefit to you that we really need, however you structure it, whether it's a database, et cetera. It's that you have a complete roll-up of everything that runs in your environment. And it needs to be as detailed as what ports and protocols are related to this, to what interfaces come in and out. If this were to go down, what are the other upstream and downstream repercussions? Mm-hmm. And so many organizations don't have that, not even close. There's many organizations that are lucky to have even a comprehensive asset, software inventory, system inventory. And some have it in the form of, these are our servers, or these are our applications, but they don't map to, well, this application has 12 servers and these are all the interfaces. So, and I remember, Ed, it must have been now almost 8 years ago, I went to a conference, and it was ArcSet at the time. And Northrop Grumman was giving a presentation on their SOC operations. And what they were showcasing then was that anytime something happened, popped on the screen a visual to show you that if you took set action, if you downed a port, if you blocked something on the network, what were going to be the ramifications of that. And I think so many times, unfortunately, the people that manage an application are pointing the fingers in all directions. Well, I don't manage that piece or that other piece. And until there's that holistic approach, like you referred to, I think we're at a huge disadvantage. I was looking at projections earlier. I kind of look at them every month. I try to, and I was seeing that earlier, that up to now, we of course don't have statistics from the Change Health situation yet fully. But as it been outside of Change Health, there were over 700 million records breached this year so far, with healthcare being 22% of that.
Right.
And so, that I think that is startling. And one of the things that comes to my mind, at least, is, what does that say about our best practices? What does that say about our strategies? What does that say about, things that we consider to be the pillars of how we build our environments, and so I think it's, if nothing else, one of the things I try to I guess weave together is, if all of these organizations with all of these solutions are having these types of situations, what needs to change?
Yeah.
What needs to change to avoid this now and moving forward?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a great point. And I think, as cybersecurity professionals, change is a bit of an anathema to how we think. And, we're certainly dealing with change every day, but the notion of changing and transforming our program to actually deal with it is daunting, because, as you know, cybersecurity is really it's a business decision. And so as a cybersecurity professional, I have to link more closely and really understand the business. And to your point about the application, the response from the application, person there. We definitely take, we a lot, 10 years ago, we took a full stack approach to development. We need to take a full stack approach to cybersecurity, and we can't silo it any longer. And it's got to be connected with the business and the processes that run the organization.
Absolutely. And I think the other challenge that we have, even if you're able to get all the funding that you need to purchase all the tools, are the people in IT themselves adequately skilled to deploy the tools in the most effective way? Many times, countless organizations have, obviously this term is known to everybody, shelfware, or you're checking the box for compliance purposes. Do you have Tripwire for file integrity monitoring? Do you have this capability or that one? And maybe you do, but it's who is monitoring, who's constantly doing quality assurance on that tool to make sure not only it's running in the best way, but it's meeting the expectations of the organization. And so I honestly, at the technical conference I was at last week, one of the things that kept resonating with me is there's too many people in IT that go out of their way to tell you they're not technical. And so to me, it says we need to raise the bar. We need to raise the standards. And the same way that there's certain, and I'm not talking necessarily about Microsoft certifications or Cisco or anything like that, but the standards need to be such that you need to prove certain proficiency to be allowed to do certain things. And yes, there's a learning curve, and there's, learning by, SMEs, subject matter experts and things like that. But at the end of the day, you don't put somebody to hold a scalpel without practice and proficiency. And that, I think, is absent in large part.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I also think that, there's a level of courage that's required at all levels in cybersecurity. And the first step is to acknowledge there's a problem and begin that journey of change, and really not push it down to the organization, but, work with them to develop that level of courage that's required. Because I think most people within an organization will sort of resist change. Whoa, wait, everything's going well. And some people will look at that as a reflection of their work in a negative way, whereas we have to change as organizations, and leaders must not only embrace the change, but also lead from the front and not push it, obviously down to the organization. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you said. And to me, a big part of that, a secret ingredient or, necessary criteria for somebody working in IT security, I think in IT in general, but especially in IT security, is a passion to learn, a passion to not give up, to have curiosity, to have interest. It's very easy for the IT security type of work to be very grueling, no matter what the role is, no matter if you're responsible for SIM or if you're responsible for the firewalls, it's all incredibly detailed. And if you have people that, I'll tell you, over the years, I've had plenty of people wanting to join IT security, many times from other departments. And it's always curious to me because, I've given them an opportunity, and then several of them have decided to go back, and there's not been hard feelings. We've still worked great together. But I always wonder, what do they think the team actually does? I think on the outside, it looks like perhaps we have free time, and perhaps, because literally, they share amongst the team and with me directly. Wow, we didn't know you worked this hard, and so it's very curious, but I totally agree that I think there has to be not only a dedication, but something within them that they like to learn, they like to research, because otherwise, yes, it would be great that every time there's a need, you can send someone to formal training and take that, that budget's not a problem and that time's not a problem, but that's not always feasible.
Right.
So if you have people, there's plenty of people that are reliable and fantastic, but they are more apt to work on something that is an established process that never changes.
Yeah.
But that's not IT security.
No, that's right. Never a dull moment. So as you look out over the next 2 years, 3 years, what are some of your top priorities?
I tell you, we have put in a lot of good technology that's working for us well. And granted, there's always the desire to put in other pieces. I think every organization that is carrying cyber liability insurance is being pushed to onboard additional software or run the risk of not being covered. But for me right now, it's twofold. Number one is bringing more of a proficiency, and that's a daily challenge for myself and the team. Daily increasing your proficiency to not only identify gaps in knowledge, but also identify ways that we can improve the process, not only streamline it. When I hear, oh, you guys work very hard. Are we working harder than we need to? Is there something that can be automated? Is there something that we can do differently? So many terms that are used, SOAR, things like that's a primary focus for me right now. Secondly, another primary focus is really with user. It's not that we don't have good user engagement, because we do, but I think there's a lot of problems with the traditional way that we're expecting people to learn. And that goes back to, my time playing different instruments, my time when I was pretty much a child till about 15 years old, ballet and jazz. You don't gain proficiency, you don't gain mastery without repetition and practice.
10,000 hours.
Exactly. And dedication and desire. And we're expecting people who are overly taxed, who are not looking forward to literally the 30, 40, 50 computer-based modules they need to complete in the next 3 weeks to learn anything. Because most of the times the reality is they're probably trying to complete email or do other things. They have the videos running in the background. It's not that they're trying to do something wrong or unethical. It's just the reality. And so if you're not in state, if you're not focused, if you're not ready to learn, you may be hearing it, but you're not learning it. And so I think, to your point, and you said it best, that I think the Change Health has really changed so much for organizations everywhere. And they realize that it doesn't matter the size, it doesn't matter the budget, that something bad can happen at any time when you least expect it. And so I think many organizations finally are getting the momentum that they always deserve to have, to focus on the user. What are we going to do differently? It shouldn't be something that is when it's convenient or when we have time. Well, if you don't take the time now, guess what's going to happen? You might have your network down, and then what? Go to paper. What's that going to look like, right?
Yeah.
Transferring patients.
Can
Exactly.
you sustain it? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are some of the things, I think you talked about this already, what are the things that keep you up at night?
Oh boy. I think what mostly I worry about is really the end user. Many times, when over the years, every time there may be a situation, I've taken the opportunity to directly speak to the user. Obviously, we have log information, and we have that at our disposal. But it's wanting to understand on their side, on their end, what happened. And so, that in itself, I think is a concern for me. The other thing that, I think it's interesting. I spoke with a lot of colleagues after the event I went to last week, and just to see if they even knew and things like that. And I think a lot of people don't realize when you go to cloud, when you're using SaaS-based application or, whatever it is, whether you're using it as a platform, et cetera. But the moment you go to cloud, there's a whole dimension of other risks, including, and I think one of the biggest, and I think most people may not be familiar, is that even if you're not using certain capabilities, those capabilities can and will impact your environment if there's a problem.
Right.
Because these capabilities typically don't run in your instance. Yes, your instance, when you did your security vetting, they were, you had a dedicated environment for your organization, and there's the, authentication, authorization controls, there's encryption, there's all these things. And you may say, well, I don't choose to use feature A or feature B. But those features running on the backplane, not only you don't have any visibility into them, but they affect you anyways.
Right.
And so much like you're saying, most organizations don't have a full picture of everything that's affected if something goes wrong with application A. I think most people go to cloud expecting and hoping, which are not strategies, that the vendor's taking care of it. And because they have more money and they have better security teams or bigger security teams and they're more professional, that nothing is going to go wrong.
And someone misconfigures the S3 bucket and then
exactly.
all bets are off.
Exactly. Excellent point. Exactly.
No, great points. Last couple of years, it just doesn't get easier. It does in healthcare, but we went through a pandemic. We came out of there. Now we're dealing with change and a bunch of other things. What are you most proud of when you sit back and kind of reflect on the last couple of years, either personally or professionally or both?
I think that one of the things that I'm most proud of, honestly, is that my team has always been tiny. It's never been a big team. And we've been able to really step back. It's at times very difficult to do when your ticketing system is inundated with requests or incidents. And incidents are just things that people, maybe there's a block website. It's not necessarily a breach or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you're inundated with user requests. But time and again, we are challenged every year from our internal audit department. They contract a red team exercise. And for many years now, we have been a fortress. We're proving our capabilities over and over. And so I'm incredibly proud of that. I think that the tools, the processes, the internal training, the repetition is really paying off. And it's really the user side that continues to concern me, of course, like every CISO. But that's one of the things that I'm really proud of when we have those exercises, because it's not just what you think is going right, is how is it being measured? And is the way that it's being measured really independent and in a way that you're not just, shining sunshine, where, there are issues. So that's one of the things I think that is really, that I'm really proud of. And also, even though my team continues to be small, the organization has been incredible with letting me augment staff when we're able. I think this is a tough time for healthcare everywhere. There's not a colleague from around the country that I don't talk to that their organization is struggling financially. And so I think, like I've heard others say, we're in a period of winter, but there's actual gifts from every season. We just need to know how to find them. And so I think that in the season of winter and cutbacks and everything else, that just finding a way to do things smarter and thinking out of the box. That's when, unfortunately, it would be great, Ed, if solutions came up or ideas came up when everything is smooth and comfortable. But, honestly,
never the case.
Is not the case. Exactly. And so this is a time that I look forward to, coming up with new and incredible ways to tackle any number of challenges that we have.
Excellent. And you have a lot of interests, as you alluded to earlier, outside of this job. What are you most passionate of? And what would you be doing if you weren't doing this?
Oh, goodness. My biggest passion are my boys. I have two boys, and they're incredible. And my husband said he's my third boy, which he is many times.
I know. I've been called a child several times.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're the world to me. They're the air that I breathe. My boys are incredible. I see life every phase. They're 16 and 18 respectively now. But every phase has been like wonder, things that just maybe don't even notice anymore. I notice again because of them.
Yeah.
And some of the things we love to do, we have a husky who's incredibly smart. She speaks all day. And I love to crochet and knit. I love playing instruments. So many times, that's how I release, any type of energy that I need to let go. I try to get out. We also have a small farm that we're trying really to cultivate in Tennessee, and we're so passionate about that. So we're just a family that likes to hang out together. I'm blessed that my boys seem to enjoy time with mom. We're very close. So that is a
rare
gift in
too
itself.
at those ages, right? I mean, that's that's great. Yeah.
They have friends, of course, but I just feel, I will always be the parent. But in many regards, I'm starting to feel like we're friends too. I'll always be the disciplinarian, but so I love that. And I also like to crochet and knit. I don't know if I said that.
You did. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. No,
I love crafts.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. What if you could go back in time, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Oh boy. It's funny. In college, I had to teach a professor, who it was an elective, but he was talking always about buying silver. And at the time it was like pennies, literally. I think it wasn't worth much. So I wish I'd done that. And then, much like a movie that I like, Back to the Future, I wish I told myself when 2008 hits, buy, invest in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because I think I love my job. I really do. But I have a lot of different passions. And so I could have been sitting on a gold mine right now.
Yeah. I think I don't know what it's at today, but it was over 75 recently. And
it's crazy. Yes. It's incredible.
Wow. It's incredible. It is incredible. It's amazing. All right, great. What is, so you mentioned music. So you're on a desert island. You can bring 5 records or albums or CDs with you. What would they be?
Oh boy. So I think I love all kinds of music. And I love music from, for example, the Forrest Gump is one of my favorite movies.
Great.
Actually. Yes, I love the soundtrack because I think it's just somebody that starts really disadvantaged, but doesn't realize or doesn't have any limits. I mean, he doesn't feel like I can't.
Right.
And so I love that. The other thing that I love is, and really, I recently participated in a program called Unleash the Power Within with Tony Robbins. And so I would take something of his to the island.
Nice.
I think motivate myself. One of my boys says he creates his own caffeine. I create my own motivation. But life can be challenging, and every now and then you need that additional voice, to kind of kick you back into gear and get you running again. And so that's something else I take. And the third one, many times I kind of hesitate because I think many people that I know just cringe, but I love disco. I love disco music. And so, maybe the reason is that my dad played guitar. He was in a band, before I was born, actually, not after, but there was always disco music. And so, one of the tunes that would play in the house often is The Age of Aquarius. That's one song that I just love. I love
Fifth Dimension, right? Or
Fifth Dimension. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I love the way that, it starts in one series of tunes and then completely shifts to a different vibe. And so I just, those things make me happy. And, even to the point that I notice it now more as the age that I am now, but certain songs even elicit certain smells and
memories
and feelings, right? Very multisensory. actually. And that's one of the things that does it for me. And it just feels, I feel peace and calmness and I love it.
No, Brandy by Looking Glass is like one of those memory triggers for me. It just takes me back to the 70s. And
yes.
No, it's so great. And what instruments do you play?
So, and this was, I play the bassoon, I play flute, piccolo, piano.
Oh, nice.
And the bassoon was kind of a fluke. I remember being in junior high in band for the first time, and the teacher went around asking, what do you want? What do you want? When he got to me, I said trumpet. And when I got home, I told my mom, and she's like, oh my goodness, you're going to get a callus on your lip and your lips will never be the same. So I was mortified. So I go back the next day and I'm like, can I have a flute? You know, most people pick flute or clarinet.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, I'm sorry, but look, I have this. So of course, anything was better than a trumpet, right? And I have to say, I was lucky and worked hard, but was able to have a music scholarship for college, playing the bassoon. So I mean, it worked out. It worked out well.
It's like Peter and the Wolf, I think.
Yes,
bassoon
and Fantasia, Sorcerer's Apprentice has a beautiful.
Yes.
You know, I saw a quartet of the different types of bassoons from bass all the way up, and it was incredible playing that piece. And you know, it's
such a unique sound.
Yes,
and it's so rich and wonderful. Yeah, no, that's terrific. And you said piano too. What
piano? Yes.
Who inspires you there?
Oh, I love Chopin.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I love Chopin, and I love things in a minor key. Kind of melancholic. I'm a very positive person, but I like it, all sorts of pieces in a minor key. I love Ernesto Lecuona, who is a Hispanic composer, just incredible music there. La Malagueña, La Comparsa. Oh, nice. Just like incredible, the diversity of music. And I think one of the incredible things, no matter who's sitting or not, you just can transport yourself with your own playing, so I love it.
That's terrific. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this question. This is the Risk Never Sleeps podcast. What is the riskiest thing you've ever done, Connie? I played bassoon in high school.
That's or try to do marching band with the bassoon.
Oh,
not a good thing. Now, I'm feeling so inept to answer this question because I feel I'm pretty conservative and not too risky. But I'll say two things, if I may. I think probably the riskiest thing personally is, jumping from a career that I had that I was, had a bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm. And then I actually had started a master's degree in education for educational leadership and decided to abandon that and go to something completely different. So that for me was, like a big risk. And I've tried to, mitigate that with certifications and ultimately recently I have an MBA in educational leadership and healthcare, which I'm very proud of. But, I think within the conversation topics that you brought up and the comments that you made, one of the riskiest things is to push decisions down to the business. And while, yes, IT for a really long time didn't involve the business, and that is not good. Right. And that's not where we want to be.
Exactly.
But when you leave, perhaps too many key decisions in the hands of the business, who are probably going to always come at it with a yes at the end, that is, I think we're living risk every day in the IT security division across all health environments. When you have a governance or a structure that at the end of the day goes down to the business. And yes, the business must function and have certain things for operations or they close the doors down. But I think honestly that probably is one of the biggest areas of risk that we all have.
That's great. That's a great way to think about, the challenges I think that we all face. And remember, do not forget the business, because it's all about, risk is a business decision, and we have to involve the business and more and more, obviously in healthcare. Any last advice to cyber professionals just starting out or maybe pursuing a path in healthcare?
Yes. I think one of the key things is really to be able to understand as many different areas of the IT division as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people that have gone through, the desktop team, the server team, the network team, especially, one of the best classes I ever took was the CCNA Academy. I think no matter where you work, where you've worked before, what experience you have, that kind of brings everything together into a different focus. And so trying to work in every different team that there is, I think is a huge benefit. I rather take somebody that's highly technical in any team than someone who hasn't worked any job and they just studied IT security. So I think it's essential to be able to get your hands, configure things, deploy things. The other thing is that you can't ever know enough. You need to be over prepared. So learning from people that know most, there's a lot of podcasts out there that are really good, that are talking about how to use free tools like Kali Linux and to practice different exploits and things like that. I think is essential for people starting out and everybody, but especially if you're starting out, be careful. You don't want to get a knock on your door, be careful, be smart about what you're trying to do and, make sure you're not, perhaps doing something that can wind up attacking a server in the federal government. But, outside of those things, learn as much as you can, the highly technical things, the more you know, the more marketable you'll be. Most people are scratching the surface of a solution, of a technology. Yes, there's some amazing people that their depth is incredible, but there's so many that their depth of knowledge is pretty superficial. And I think that's a problem across all IT divisions that we need to look at and remedy.
Yeah. Wise advice, sage insight for folks. Thank you, Connie, so much for joining us today.
My sincere pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And this is Ed Gaudet from the Risk Never Sleeps podcast. If you're on the front lines protecting patient safety and delivering patient care, remember to stay vigilant because risk never sleeps.